Hello everyone, welcome to Ultimine. Today I'm hijacking your show.
Are you? But I'm excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you see, the thing I feel is we've not really gotten deep into who Poonam is. And although we've had one interview already, I feel like that was like my first interaction with you.
Yes, we were
And it
just
was
getting
so
to know
surface
each other.
level.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a whole world to you
Yeah.
and this amazing platform you're building. And I've not told you any of the questions beforehand. You're going to be on the spot. And we're just going to dive into a bit more into who Poonam is and what Ultimind is here to achieve.
Perfect. Let's
So guys,
do this.
if you haven't hit the subscribe and push bell notification buttons already, what are you doing? Make sure you do that right now because you're missing on amazing content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But that aside, let's get straight into it.
I'm nervous, but let's dive into it. Let's be natural and let's go with the flow.
Right.
Yeah.
So first thing I want to know is, when someone goes into mental health, it's a very big decision, and I've seen usually it comes as a result of past experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
And we did touch on that in my video where we interviewed you, cards above. But what I want to know is, specifically to you, why did you get into mental health? And who are you targeting with your audience and to achieve what? What is Ultimind and why are you here with this platform?
So I feel with mental health, it's
Right.
very personal, and you can only have it as a passion, or it can feel so deep to you. It is only when you have gone through something.
Right.
And when you have experienced and you've walked in those shoes, it's a whole total different ballgame. For me, I never knew what mental health was. It was there, you were reading about it, but I never knew these things existed until I underwent through depression and anxiety and stress. And the way I came out of it, I said, this is serious, this matters, and
Right.
we need to step in at the right time. And because it was my journey and I went through the whole process, I decided when I came out of there, as I mentioned in my previous video, is to help Poonams out there. So I'm targeting families, there's less communication, and just to increase that if there's a problem, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody.
Right.
Because when you reach out to somebody, first you're acknowledging there's a problem and you're getting the help you need. We try to pretend we're okay and we'll post pictures on social media as a family that everything is fine, but behind doors, it's
Right.
a whole different story.
Let me stop you there. It's very interesting, and I feel like this is the first time we've touched in the realm of families.
Yeah.
And let's tell everyone, you're not actually a mental health consultant in general. We're focusing mainly on families. And why was that specifically important to you? So what did you go through with your family that wasn't going right? The shift that going through a mental health clinic helped you with, and how you can help deliver that to these other Poonams in the world.
So I think in families, we are so restricted. We don't have open conversations.
Yeah.
And I wish in my family base, when I was in my first marriage,
Yeah.
I wish I had somebody who would tell me, Poonam, these are the pros, these are the consequences, and just guide you
Pros
in
and
life
consequences of?
being in a relationship.
Okay, right.
Of, if things are not going okay in a relationship, that this is a phase that every couple goes through.
Right.
I wish I had someone I
So
could talk
what are
to.
some of these things that
Like-
you touch on?
like
Give me
when-
2-3 examples.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Right.
The first year of marriage is very rosy.
Right.
Things drop.
The honeymoon phase.
Yes,
I
things
get you.
drop. And again, when you have children, things drop.
Right.
And I focus so much more on love than companionship that I
Right.
forgot that it's not all about love. So I wish
So love is one element to a
Yes.
relationship. So what are the other pillars? Because me, I talk about entrepreneurship and stuff. I'm the last person to be giving relationship advice. So actually, when I speak to you, I'm learning myself.
Yeah.
So actually, if love is not enough in a relationship, what makes a relationship enough?
So you need to have companionship, there
Right.
needs to be respect, and there needs to be stability. This makes
Right.
a relationship. I didn't know all this until I had my fall down, and when I went to see a counselor, and as I learned more about myself, I
Right.
understood love cannot keep a relationship together.
It's one
Yes,
ingredient. It's like trying to bake a
important.
cake with just flour.
Yeah.
Yes, flour is a very important ingredient.
But without sugar, there's
There's
nothing.
no sugar, no eggs,
Yeah.
no baking
There's
soda.
nothing.
You'll have a bag of
No,
flour.
you can't.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now, when you did go for mental health yourself, let's just leave what Ultimind does
Yeah.
for a second. how did that experience personally shift your mindset? Because I know that you launched Ultimine because of going through that shit. And I just want you to share a bit more to people that transformative journey that you went to, that showed you that love is not just the ingredient. Like, what's the process you went through, and how did this help form this beautiful, beautiful community we're building?
Oh, thank you, Sahil. So for me, my journey changed when I went and I met a counselor.
Right.
During my process, I acknowledged my mistakes,
right,
what I went through in my first marriage. I overcame it and I said, okay, this has happened, I'm sorry, and behind me. Secondly, I learned more about myself.
Right.
I learned that it's important to have boundaries, learning to say no. I was always out there to please people. Even if I didn't want to say, do something, I would come and say, okay, Sahil, let's do it.
People pleasing.
I was a people
pleaser. So now,
pleaser.
how did this counseling take away these barriers that were holding you so back?
It's because I learned about myself, and I said, if I don't stand up for myself, no one is going to. I can only give if my cup is full. I can't giving if my cup is empty.
So what I'm getting from you, and you know, like, I've not been for counseling, so even I'm learning a lot. Counseling is not like a procedural method, like you must do this, this, and this, and you get healthy.
It's your journey.
So what it's like finding out who you are and adapting with that.
First, it's self-acceptance that there is a problem.
Right.
After that, you go deep into what you want for yourself. You set your own goals. And as you're learning about yourself, you know how to reach your goals. You become a better person. You know how to handle difficult situations that trigger anxiety and stress.
So give our audience one example, okay? Just so, you know, because I feel like they don't have this faith in mental health, which they should have, because I've seen the extraordinary work you do and what people say after having met you. And even, let me be honest with you guys, okay? Poonam's gonna get so mad at me for saying this, but before even meeting you, I was one of those people, like, yes, I knew mental health has an importance, and I knew that more awareness is needed around the subject, but I just didn't know to the level through which it's like you're an onion, and then you go layer and layer and layer,
till you get
and then you figure out, like, some of the beliefs. Like, for example, if I'm at work and then I see someone is being lazy, I'll judge them without even thinking.
Exactly.
And that comes down to, like, you know, how I was brought up, what people told me when I wasn't being as productive. And that's something I realized is a problem after meeting you, which I didn't even know exists.
Because they coming to work, you don't know what they've gone through. So this is what I
want to know is, like, everyone, I'm sure, especially Gen Zs,
I was like that.
They know that, like, mental health right now is a bigger issue than before, and more people are having the conversations. But I want to go a bit deeper. Like, okay, you know, there's one thing like having a conversation with your mom, like things went wrong, and speaking. And when you speak to anyone, it makes a big difference compared to just being silent, right? But what's the difference that someone goes through with the process when they speak to you versus when they speak to, like, their mom or their friend, to making those breakthroughs much faster?
So when you speak to a counselor, it's someone you don't know. There's no judgment. When you speak to your mom or your sister, it's biased. I can't counsel my mom or my sister. It's unethical. Yeah, and there's a bit of biasness because I know you on a personal level, and you as Sahil will not.
Also, it's giving that person a safe space with a blank canvas. When there's a relationship that you've already established, that canvas has a little bit of yellow and red paint on it, which makes us harder to draw the picture that we want.
And you see, if I know you pre-hand, like my mom knows me pre-hand, she's already got an image or a picture, even my sister. But when I went to my counselor, for me, it was just my counselor and me.
And that way they're able to advise you without putting that bias on you.
And it's amazing. Like when I went for my first session, I spoke out everything. And I thought to myself, session 2, what am I going to speak? And trust me, when I entered that room, I was blabbering, I was crying, I was letting go. And I had 15 sessions. And every session runs for an hour, and I had different things that kept coming out.
And did you know these things before?
No. When I entered the room, I'd be like, what am I going to talk about today?
Poonam, where my concern with this a little bit is, it requires a certain level of vulnerability, right? And I've seen, you know, because we work together with certain things, that when you address your questions to your clients, you need them to be vulnerable, and you ask them, like, how does this happen? What do you feel about these things? What do you do for those people, like, you know, who are completely shelled up and, like, they're unable to break the boundary? And when you ask them, like, questions, they genuinely don't know the answers. Like if you ask me, how do you feel? For example, me, I can tell you I'm happy and all, but how do I really feel about things? I don't know how to address that. So how does, okay, I've understood now the safe space, but for those people who, because, they're hurting, so they put up such a giant concrete wall, how are you able to break that so they can unleash themselves and be free?
Okay, so when I work with adults, it's normally adults who are willing that come to me.
Right.
Yeah. So like if you come to me, you're willing, and there are right questions that are pro. But now when you bring a child to me,
right,
and I ask a child a certain question, they're not going to have a conversation like me and you.
All right.
So there are different techniques we use there. There's play therapy and art therapy.
Also, that comes down to you doing your professional thing the way you know how to do it.
But you do
so you do have these methods to break down that this wall that a typical person wouldn't be able to do.
With the child, I'm a child.
Right.
Because I cannot ask a child, how are you feeling? What happened? They're not going to come and tell me because first they're scared. You're a new person.
So
and
you
to
have
a child,
to use
they're shelled
some
off.
brain techniques to like get into them and get the information out of them without
need to make them
knowing.
feel comfortable.
And that's where you specialize
Yes.
in. Right. So from what we've spoken, it's obvious. You love mental health. You know what you're doing. I want to talk a little bit, because that's a bit of my realm, about social media.
Yeah.
And I know another one of the target audience you have are like single moms like you, who feel like, they're always dependent on their husbands for income, or like, they played that feminine role and now maybe they have to raise kids on their own, or they've just separated and want their independence, or they may even be in a perfect relationship but just want an extra source of income, right? So now what I want to dive into is like, with social media and with the space for mental health and all, how important is doing what you love as a basis as to how happy you can be? And the answer, I know what you'll answer, and it's obvious. Like, I put you in a situation where you have to answer, it's very important. But for those people, like, we know, follow your heart and things work. Those people who don't have the courage, like you in a respectful interior designing job, you